Hello, homeowners and future homeowners. In this video, I'm going to explain the seller's disclosures to both sellers and to buyers. Hello there, Brian Schwatka, Realtor and Transition Specialist. Thanks for joining me for seller's disclosures. It's not a very exciting topic, but it's critically important to your real estate transaction. It's probably one of the most important parts of the entire thing because it's going to keep everybody out of trouble, out of mediation and arbitration and things like that. In fact, if there's ever a problem with a real estate transaction, I'd say probably 90% of the time it has something to do with either disclosing or not disclosing something. So I'm going to move a little fast, but I'm always here for you. If you ever want to get more detailed, you want to get on the phone or a Zoom call or want me to explain it in person, no problem. And also, this is just the disclosures that we need to actually manually fill out. There are a lot of other disclosures that we're not going to talk about in this video that the seller is responsible to give to the buyer, like HOA docs, inspection reports, home inspection, pest inspection, roof inspection, chimney inspection, the preliminary title report, the CC&Rs, the easements and plat maps and natural hazards disclosure statements. All of those things are going to be supplied to the seller. Then the seller will then supply those to the buyer for full disclosure. But what we're going to talk about here is what the seller's actually telling the buyer of what they know about the property. So, as I said, it's up to the seller to disclose everything in order to get an as-is sale, right? And it's up to the buyers to understand everything so they can remove their contingencies and feel good about doing that, right? All the cards have been on the table. This is going to eliminate surprises and renegotiations. So here's my warning to you for the buyers. Don't write an offer until you've read all of these disclosures and you understand them all and you sign them saying, I completely get it. I know everything there is to know about the home, and now I'm placing my offer. And a warning to the sellers, don't even look at an offer or let alone sign an offer unless the buyer has proven to you that they've seen all of these disclosures, okay? So that's the important part I wanted to get across to you. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen with you of these disclosures, and I'm going to help you, the seller, fill them out. Here we are. We're going to start out with the Disclosure Information Advisory. What this is pretty much the instructions for the seller of how to fill out your disclosures. So this is a relatively new document as of June of 2020. And I guess they wanted to really kind of make sure that the sellers understood how to fill out the document. So we're going to go through this. The introduction: all sellers in California are required to provide, various disclosures, right? And what it's their duty to disclose to the buyers all material conditions, defects, things that impact the value and desirability of the property. Pretty much, it's Mr. Seller, it's what you would want to know if you were purchasing a home, right? Everything that the buyer needs to know to properly evaluate and decide if they want to buy this home. All right. And if you don't, obviously we already talked about, it may lead to a claim or a lawsuit if you're not over disclosing, okay? So there are the main two documents that the seller uses to transfer their knowledge to the buyers about what they know about the home is the Transfer Disclosure Statement, or the TDS, and the Seller Property Questionnaire, the SPQ. And this document shows you how to fill those out, and we're actually going to go and talk about those as well. Okay, like I said, I'm going to go a little bit fast, and you can read this yourself, and these are the instructions. But, preparing to complete your disclosure obligations, it's just telling you to make sure you read, make sure you understand, and you may be reminded of some of these things from maybe past disclosures, things that you know about in the past, right? Maybe from a previous owner, or maybe things that have happened a long time ago. Start to refresh your memory of what those past things are, okay? Allow plenty of time to do this. Grab a glass of wine, just kind of slow down. You can fill them out really over a series of days. You can fill them out before you get your inspection reports or after, whenever you feel comfortable. And maybe you just kind of start filling them out and you just go along. Oh yeah, I thought of something else. I'm going to fill that in. As we're getting the home ready to go on the market, you should be filling these disclosures out, because once we hit the market, these disclosures are going to have to be in the package and it's the responsibility of the buyers to look at them before we place an offer. And if we want offers to come in, we've got to have our disclosures done, okay? So things that maybe people have told you orally, maybe things that neighbors have told you. If you're not sure about something and you want to ask the question, hey, is this something I should disclose? It's probably something you should disclose, okay? Just remember what the buyer wants to hear, okay? Another tip, don't leave any questions blank. Everything has to be filled out, either a yes, a no, or an explanation. Something has to be there. Don't leave anything blank. Um, Avoid words like never, minor, insignificant, small, inconsequential, things like that. That is your opinion. Just state facts on there. There's a crack in the driveway, black and white, simple. Okay. There's a crack in the corner of the ceiling near the kitchen, things like that. Okay. All right, we're going to keep going. Don't assume. Okay. Don't assume that anyone that did work on your home had permits unless you know it. Most of the questions are, is the seller aware? If you're not aware, then it's usually a no, but try and rack your brain. Now we're down to completing specific types of disclosures. The first one, remember I told you, was the real estate transfer disclosure statement, or the TDS. So there's going to be a series of check boxes of items that exist in the property. So it's the transfer disclosure. It's the things that are transferring with the house to the buyer. Okay. Then you'll say if any of those items are not in operating condition. You might disclose any issues with those items. And section B, 2B, sorry, and then section 2B asks if you're aware of any significant defects or malfunctions. Aware, significant defects or malfunctions, okay? If you respond yes to any questions, you're going to put as much information about that below as you can. We're going to get into all this. This is just the instructions. I'm going to fly right through this. This is something I want you to read. I don't want to read it to you. I want you to read this yourself. So it also says here that your listing agent cannot give you legal advice, so I can't do that. Now we come to the instructions of how to fill out the seller property questionnaire, or the SPQ. And you have to do this. This is the detailed version of the transfer disclosure statement. The transfer disclosure statement is only 3 pages. The seller property questionnaire gets a little more detailed. Keep reading. There is a question we're going to have to come up with an answer to in regards to non-compliant plumbing fixtures. We'll get there. It's a little confusing. So there's actually a document about that, and I will talk about that in the future. Now we're going to come down to the third document that they want to explain to you, which is the exempt seller disclosure, or ESD. We don't use this very often. Okay, there's not many times that a seller is exempt from disclosing things. Only if it's like a probate deal and you didn't know anything about the home, or it was a court sale or a bankruptcy or a foreclosure or something where they didn't know about the property. That's when the exempt seller disclosure comes into play. So I'm not even going to discuss it because I rarely come across the ESD. So final recommendations. The real estate licensee, we strongly recommend that if you're aware of any planned or possible changes to your neighborhood, that you should disclose any lawsuits or HOA disputes. If your disclosures change over time, like you fill out this document and then halfway through our transaction, something changes and you know of something, you're supposed to bring that up. Don't just leave it. Don't just not say anything about it. Make sure you're bringing up things as they happen. If you have any questions about the legalities or really how you fill it out, you can consult with a real estate attorney for some advice. If you need help in knowing what to disclose, you can talk to an attorney, but you can talk to me also, okay? And when in doubt, the best answer to do I need to disclose this is almost always yes, disclose it, over disclose. So here I put our names here, John Doe and Jane Doe. Here's where you're going to sign and date, okay? Now we're going to go on to actually the real estate transfer disclosure statement, the TDS. This is the document. So we're saying that we put the address in, the county, the address, what date you're filling this disclosure in. Okay, so you just type right there the date you're filling it in. And then we're going to remember I said we have to check one of these boxes. I usually have my clients check this one here. Inspection reports completed pursuant to the contract. Because if you sign this one here, additional inspection reports and disclosures, then you're going to lock it in. And what if you get new disclosures? And then we're going to have to change this document. So I usually click the top one. Now, another thing to think about when you're filling out disclosures or contracts, when you see bold capital letters or boxes that are empty or lines that need to be filled in, that's what we're looking for, okay? All of the text, there's nothing we can do about the text. That is what it is. You're not going to change this because this is what everyone uses in California. So let's look for empty boxes, empty lines, and bold type. Okay, so the first bold we see here is these representations are made by the seller and are not representations of the agents. So the agent cannot fill this form out for you. Seller has to do it. Seller can do it electronically or handwritten. It's up to you. A lot of people decide, hey, I want it to be handwritten so they know I actually did this, okay? And so now we're just going to start checking some boxes. So let me switch over to my box checker. And so we're going to say, is the seller occupying or not occupying the property? Now we just go through and we check off the things that are coming with the home. Now remember, like on a microwave, if the microwave is attached to the home or to the range, it's coming with the home, so we can click off microwave. But if it's a microwave that's just sitting there on the counter, that's personal property and you're going to take that with you. It doesn't transfer with the home. So we're not going to check that box. But we might check range. Oh, it's got a dishwasher, that's attached. Washer and dryer hookups. It's got a garbage disposal, that's attached. Carbon monoxide detector, smoke detector. We're going to talk about that in the future here in this presentation. Does it have central heating, central air conditioning? Maybe it doesn't have central air conditioning, but maybe it has a window air conditioning unit. Are there sprinklers? Public sewer system? Is there a septic tank or not? Most likely not. Water softener, that's attached to the home. Just keep going through. See, just click off all of these as they apply to you. Yes, there's a garage. Yes, it's attached. Yes, there's an automatic garage door opener. A number of remotes. I would put a number 1 or a number 2 there. Sauna, hot tub, a pool, water heater. We all probably have a water heater. A lot of them are gas, but some of them are electric. Where does the water come from? From the city. Okay. Where does the gas come from? It's utility. Do we have window screens? Most likely. Do we have water conserving plumbing fixtures? We'll talk about that. Remember, if you don't know, then don't say it. I would rather you not say something than you do say something and then it's not true, and then they call you out on it, okay? All right, next we're going to go down to exhaust fans in. Where are those exhaust fans? So what I would do is I would say, maybe you would say kitchen and baths. Put that in there like that. Maybe there's 220 wiring. Where is the 220 wiring? Maybe it's in the garage. Whoops. Maybe it's in the garage. Maybe you don't know. If you don't know, don't put it. Okay. In the fireplace. Where is the fireplace? Is it in the living room? Is it in the family room? Then we start clicking off things again. Remember, we can say, well, there's a gas starter. It has a roof, so we're definitely going to check that box. What kind of roof? Is it comp? Is it tile? Is it, tar and gravel? What kind of roof is that? And then the age of the roof, approximate age of the roof. Maybe you put 10 years in there, 15 years. Just put an approximate date. It's not that important to know the exact date of your roof or how old it is. Okay, then it's saying, are there, to the best of your knowledge, okay, any of the above that are not in operating condition? Either yes or no. But if we say yes, remember, any yes means that we have to then type what it is. Okay, and then you're going to put your initials there, sellers. If there's 1, if there's 2, you put both initials. Okay, moving on to page 2. It's asking, are you the seller aware of any significant defects or malfunctions in any of the following? And you will say yes or no. And you will then put a check mark on anything that you feel has a significant defect or malfunction. Check what you feel is significant and then describe it below. And if you have more description, you can always attach an additional sheet that tells about that. There's usually not a lot of significant defects or malfunctions. There are some things that are going to be transferred, and it also talks about that water conserving plumbing fixtures. Okay, so here it says built on or before January 1994. A lot of houses are built before January 1994. Are they equipped with water conserving plumbing fixtures as of January of 2017? If it was altered, was it equipped with water conserving plumbing fixtures? If you don't know, then just say you don't know. Okay, now we move down to, are you the seller aware of any of the following? Let's put our check mark here. Usually, most of these answers are no, all the way down the line. Now, I just want to spell out a couple of them to you because I want you to read this. I don't want to just read the whole thing to you. But there are some things where you're going to put a yes, probably. And usually, number 2, features of the property shared with adjoining landowners, such as fences, right? Usually, we all have fences that are shared. If I put an S, I'm going to come down here and I'm going to say fences. Or I might put a number 2 because we're talking about question number 2, 2, comma, fences. Now, this is an important one here. Any encroachments, easements, or similar matters that affect the interests of the property. Some sellers don't know if there's an easement or an encroachment, but that information is usually found in the preliminary title report, which comes from the title company, which gets ordered right when we open escrow. So I'm going to try and send you that information ahead of time so you know that how to answer these questions correctly. But this is a pretty important one, encroachments and easements. So make sure you look for that one. It's either a yes or maybe a no. Any modifications or additions made without necessary permits. The other ones you can read. Here's another one. Number 11 is usually a popular one. Neighborhood noise problems or other nuisances. If you've got that kid next door that plays drums or that dog that continually barks. I know you're thinking, boy, buyer's not going to want to buy this house with that kind of stuff in there. The buyer just wants you to be honest and just tell them everything, okay? And you want to over disclose. So yes, if there's a yes, we're going to put it down here. We're going to say item number 11, kid next door plays drums. It's totally up to you, Mr. Seller, if you want to do that, but I'm advising you to over disclose. Also, are there any CC&Rs? How would you know that? I'm going to send that stuff to you if you have it, okay? Homeowners Association, common areas. Are there any lawsuits against the seller making it hard to sell the property? So you go ahead and answer these questions as best you can, but most often they're all no, except for the fences, usually. Okay, moving on. We're saying here that the seller certifies that the property, as of the close of escrow, will have an operating smoke detector and water heater braced and strapped. And it doesn't say it here, but you're also going to want a carbon monoxide detector installed, one on each floor. So you'll put your initials there, and we'll keep moving down. We'll put the date here. Here's your address, and here's where the sellers sign. And then the agent is actually going to sign as well. And it's the agent's responsibility to do what's called an agent's visual inspection disclosure, or an AVID. That's just a visual inspection that every realtor has to do, whether it's the listing agent or the selling agent. So I'm going to click that box, see the attached disclosure form, because I couldn't possibly fit everything on these lines. Then I will date it, and this is a chronological document. So after I sign it, next comes the other agent signing, and they'll put their agent's visual inspection right there. They'll click that box and they will attach their AVID, and their agent will sign, the buyer's agent will sign. Then, because you're seeing this document, I don't want you to sign past anyone else who hasn't signed. It's a chronological document. That goes to the buyers too. So don't sign past somebody who hasn't signed. Rule of thumb with chronological documents. So for the seller, don't sign this part of it yet until they've signed above you. Okay, so that was the transfer disclosure statement. Good job. So we're through that one. Now we come to the property questionnaire. This is all the information that the seller is going to use to tell the buyer little nuances about the home. It's not a substitute for the TDS. The TDS is very important for everyone to fill out. So here we're just going to go through this. We're going to put our parcel number will be filled in. I'll fill that in for you. And the broker, it's saying here in the document that the broker has not verified the information provided by the seller. I'm not going to question the seller or ask them if this is true or not. We're not going to verify that it is true. This is a statement from the seller to the buyer. It has nothing to do with the brokers. The broker does the AVID, not the TDS or the SPQ. Okay, so the purpose of the document, again, we've already talked about this, but it's to tell the buyer about known and material significant items affecting the value and desirability of the property. It's based on the knowledge and recollection at this time of the seller. Okay, think about what you would want to know if you were buying the property. Take your time. If you don't understand, you can consult an attorney or contact me. And then so here, we're just going to get started here. Are you, the seller, aware of any of these items? If you say yes, you write the explanation down there. So here we go. And I'm not going to go through all of these because I really want you to be reading these and understand what you're signing, but I'm going to talk about the ones that I get the most questions about. So the main one, has there been a death in the property in the last 3 years? Okay, yes or no? Some people really want to know the answer to that question. If it's been more than 3 years, you don't have to disclose it. Has the property been contaminated by methamphetamines? Not a lot of them have, but it's very important if it has. And we can talk about that on the side, but just answer these questions as best you can. Is it by an industrial use zone? Any nuisances created by that industrial use zone? Is it located within a former federal or state ordinance location? Was it used for military training purposes? Has there been any insurance claims in the last 5 years? This is important to buyers and for lenders. Any issues with the title on the property? Any defects or things that affect the property that you haven't otherwise disclosed? Are there any non-compliant plumbing fixtures? Here's a good time to say, I don't know. Here's a good time to say, they're all old plumbing fixtures and I haven't done any upgrades to them. Get that out of the way right here. But if you don't know, remember, is the seller aware? If you're not aware, then just put a no. So then the seller will sign or initial down here. We'll go to page 2. Again, are you aware of any modifications, alterations, replacements, improvements, remodeling? So this is where the seller is going to tell the buyer, I put in double pane windows, maybe 2004. I put a new roof on 15 years ago. We updated the kitchen, did a remodel in the kitchen about 7 years ago. We put a new heater in. We did some landscaping. We put in hardwood floors, things like that. This is where you tell the buyer everything that you've done to the home over the years. And if you need more space, you can put it in a separate document. But usually you can pretty much fit it in right there. Okay, then it was asking, are there anything of that work that was done for the purpose of energy and water efficiency improvements? A lot of people do remodeling. It's not for the purpose of energy efficiency, but maybe if you did the windows for that, you might check yes and say, put the double pane windows in. Here, ongoing recurring maintenance in the property, whether that's you have spray for termites every 6 months. Maybe you have a water softener system that needs maintenance, recurring maintenance on the property. Maybe you get your main line snaked from the house out to the street every 6 months or a year. Put all that stuff in there. Has any part of the property been painted within the last 12 months? If you did any home prep, probably did some painting, put yes. The explanation, painted interior. It's pretty simple to fill this out. It's just a matter of making sure you fill in all the boxes and you put something down. If you don't, the buyer's going to think, what's not being disclosed? If you over disclose, the buyer's going to be like, wow, this seller's telling me everything. And I think it adds a lot of validity to a seller when they're over disclosing, when they're telling the buyer things that maybe even they don't even need to be telling the buyer. But I want that buyer to have a real warm, fuzzy feeling that this seller's not holding anything back. Okay. Okay. Now we get into lead-based paint. Whether the property was built before 1978, a lot of properties are. So the seller says yes, it was built before 1978. If yes, right, were any of the renovations of those lead-based painted surfaces started and completed? Did you cut up anything or sand anything that was lead-based paint? Now remember, if you don't know, if you are unaware, then don't say yes to that. If you're not 100% sure, you want to say no. But even if you put a no, you can still explain, I'm not sure about the lead-based paint or something. You know, you don't put an explanation just because you put an yes. You're just trying to, I guess, tell the buyer everything you know, but tell the buyer everything you don't know either, right? And just put an explanation. All right, let's keep going. Structural systems and appliances. Okay, is there any defects in any of the following? That's like heating, electrical, plumbing, water, sewer. We've already answered this question in the TDS, remember, but here's another chance for you to say yes or no. Are you leasing anything on the property? So a solar system, a water softener, direct TV, um, things that you lease, an alarm system, things like that. Okay. Then do you have a septic system? Yes or no? Have you ever had any financial relief due to earthquake, flood, fire, disaster, anything like that? Here's an important one, super important one. Has there ever been water intrusion into any part of the property? Did you have a pipe that burst under the sink and it kind of flooded the kitchen, but you took care of it? They're going to want to know if there's ever been water inside the house. Has the roof leaked and come inside? You can say yes and then explain, and it was fixed, and we repaired the floor, things like that. Um, then it's asking, do you know of anything mold, mildew, fungus? If you're not a mold, mildew, or fungus expert, then I wouldn't put yes. This is, are you, the seller, aware of those things? Okay. Have you been affected by rivers, streams, flood channels, underwater, you or the neighborhood? That's a good question there. Moving down, is there pets in the property? Yes or no? Do you have problems with livestock? I doubt you do, cows and things, but it does say insects or pests. So if you do have termites, you're aware of it, you might want to put yes, and then you might want to say in the explanation here, see pest inspection. Okay. Um, any odors from the pets or the livestock or the pests? Any treatment of those things? Or maybe you've had your home tinted in the past. You might want to say yes to that and say how home tinted 3 years ago. If so, when? We're continuing to move on because I don't want to take too much time. Boundaries, surveys, easements, encroachments, and disputes. Super important. Some people leave this blank because they don't know. If you don't know, then just say no. But if you do, or maybe you might want to say, check preliminary title report. Has the property been used by anyone other than you, and are you using anyone else's property? Now we're down here to landscaping, pool, and spa. Do you have infestations affecting trees, plants, and vegetation? Do you have operational sprinklers on the property? Are they automatically or manually operated? Are there any areas that are not covered by the sprinkler system? So you might want to say front walkway is not covered by sprinkler systems. Do you have a pool heater on the property? Is there a spa heater on the property? And do you have any defects, cracks, leaks, or problems with anything that you just talked about above this? The pool or the sprinklers or the spa. Keep going down. If you're in a condominium or a common interest development, you're going to answer these questions, and the buyer's going to want to know, is there any pending or proposed dues or special assessments coming that they should know about? Okay. Does the architectural committee have authority over improvements? Were any improvements made? without the required approval of the architectural committee. These are HOA types of issues. Okay, just mark yes or no to those. We're moving down to title and ownership. Is there any other person on title other than the seller signing this form? Okay, maybe you have a third owner of the property, or maybe only one seller is filling out the form. Keep going down. Any pending or threatened lawsuits, any private transfer fees that are going to be triggered by the sale, any PACE lien or HERO liens or SCEIP loans. If you don't know what those means, the answer is probably no. Is any of these alterations, modifications, replacements, improvements, are those going to be paid by an assessment on your property tax bill? Usually it's not. If you don't know, put no. Here's the other, remember we were already talking about neighborhood noise and nuisances. These are things where you want to put your cards on the table. Some people say things as minimal as planes fly over. Some people say, I can hear a train go by in the distance. Some people say, when school gets out, I hear kids in the neighborhood. Just put down what you feel might be an issue. Remember, if you were buying the property, what would you want to know? If you're going to say yes to this is a real nice, honest way to just say some things. It's not going to kill the deal. In fact, it's going to solidify your relationship with the buyer, okay, because you're being honest. All right, so that was page 3 of 4. We're down to the last page. We're doing great. Here's some governmental stuff. Is there a freeway coming through your neighborhood anytime soon? Eminent domain. Is there any rent control issues in your neighborhood? Is there any contemplated building that's going to be happening where the fees don't actually appear on your property tax bill, but you might know about it? Is there any proposed construction going on soon? Any government requirements, tall grass or vegetation or protected habitats in the area if your property is historically designated? Are there any water surcharges? Remember, it would be great if we could just say no all the way down, and the buyer would be, oh, whew, it's all no. If you know something, go ahead and put yes. Most of these are no, usually. Okay, other. Down to number 17, reports, inspections, and disclosures. We should have reports, inspections, and disclosures, right? Here's a good one to say yes to. If you say yes, then down here in explanation, we're just going to type home, roof, pest, chimney, inspection. Has any occupant of the property been smoking? Any known material facts that we haven't talked about prior that affect the desirability and the value of the property? Probably no. Okay, that's it. If there's anything else that you're going to add to this, like there wasn't enough room on this document for you to fill in all your information, then you'll click this box and then you'll attach an addendum that says, here's the additional items. Sellers both sign, then we send it to the buyers, then the buyers sign. And we're done with the seller property questionnaire. All right, those are the 2 important ones. Those are the most important ones. If I give you any 2, it's going to be those 2. All right, because only you know that information. No home inspector, pest inspector, roof inspector can know what you know as the seller. We're going to go down to the agent's visual inspection disclosure. This is my job. Now it's time for me to tell the buyers what I know about the property. And it's only visual, okay? So I'm going to do a visual inspection, normal, accessible areas, facts that I think will affect the desirability and the value of the property. Now, I'm not going to get too detailed. I'm just going to go around and there's a crack, there's a smudge, there's a ding, there's a scratch, things like that. But I need to do this. This is my responsibility as a realtor to prove that I was there and I'm being honest as well. And it's also the responsibility of the buyer's agent as well to do one, okay? Everyone's looking at this property to make sure all the cards are on the table. So we go down here, it says California law does not require the agent to do the following. Okay, remember, it's only a visual inspection. So things are areas that aren't reasonably or normally accessible. I'm not going to do that. Offsite things, public records and permits, common areas. I'm not going to go around the complex and look for cracks in near the pool. I'm just doing an agent's visual inspection of your property. Here's other things that agents won't do in their AVID. Okay, they're not going to climb. They're not going to move things. They're not going to look under things and around things. They're not going to go under the house. They're not going to operate appliances. They're not going to measure square footage. We're not going to determine if the property has mold or asbestos or lead, any of that. That's not my responsibility. It's out of my range of expertise anyway. I'm not obligated to pull permits. I'm not obligated to determine or come up with what I think is the cause or the source of a problem. If I see something that looks like a water stain on the ceiling, I'm not going to say there's a water stain on the ceiling. How do I know if it came from water? Maybe it's just something that looks like a water stain, but it's some other kind of stain. So I'm just going to do a very high level, 20,000 foot. Here's what I saw at the property. Okay. And there's always a disclosure, because what we're talking about here is the seller disclosing everything and then the buyer's responsibility to do their due diligence. Okay. So here it even says, big, bold, capital letters, buyer should review the disclosures. Buyer should obtain advice about the inspections. If the buyer fails to do so, the buyer is acting against the advice of the broker. Up to the buyers to do all their due diligence. Here's the seller's initials. We're done with page 1. Here's me filling in this document. Here's my company. Here's the date I did the inspection. Here's the weather conditions. It was nice and sunny. It was rainy. Other people that were present, maybe you, the seller, were there. Maybe the home inspector was there, or maybe I was just there by myself. And I'm just going to go through and I'm going to say, in the entryway, here's what I see. In the living room, here's what I see. Mainly it's paint needs touch up. Carpet has a spot. Hardwood floor has a scratch. There was a rug on top of the floor and the sun faded the outside area and it's darker underneath the rug. Maybe a light switch doesn't work. Maybe the kitchen counter has a scratch. Maybe there's something in the hallway. So I'm just going to go through bedrooms, bathrooms, other rooms. Seller's going to initial as I go through. Other places, other rooms. I'm going to go in the garage. I'm going to go outside. Then I'm going to say other conditions not specified above. Maybe I'll hear some neighborhood noises or nuisances and I might put them here. So this is my inspection, my disclosure above and beyond the TDS and the SPQ. I will sign, the sellers will sign, and then remember it's a chronological document. Now the buyers will sign. Then I will sign, seeing that the buyers signed, and the other agent will sign, seeing that I signed and the buyer signed and the seller signed chronologically. Okay, now we get into another document. It's called Market Conditions Advisory. And so what this is saying, this is buyer beware kind of. Market Condition Advisory says that real estate markets are cyclical, that buyers may offer more than the originally planned price, and they might remove or eliminate contingencies from their offers, and that real estate prices may drop. This is all just sort of the seller telling the buyer, please do your due diligence. Buyer understands the potential for little or no appreciation in value. As a buyer, you're responsible for determining the price you want to offer for the property, right? That's not up to the agent. Non-contingent offers, these are scary. These are removing your contingencies, Mr. Buyer, saying that I've done my due diligence. I'm okay with everything. I'm removing my contingencies. And what happens is sometimes buyers are so adamant about the home that they'll say, you know what, I don't need any contingencies. I want that house. I'm removing all rights with my offer. Now, you got to be careful, buyers, because it's hard to back out, okay, after you've removed your contingencies. So look at those inspection reports. Be very careful when you're placing an offer that is non-contingent. Okay. The only time I would ever place an offer that was non-contingent would be on a house that was in very good condition. I've seen all the inspection reports. The seller was being very upfront. I read everything about the property. I signed all those disclosures and I sent it in with my offer. And if I felt really warm and fuzzy about that home, then I would place a non-contingent offer. So, like I said, buyers will sometimes write offers with no contingencies. That's what it's saying here. And it's saying that the broker recommends that the buyer do not write non-contingent offers. The contingencies usually that the buyers have, they have a loan contingency, an appraisal contingency, and an inspection contingency or a property contingency. It's just saying there that you may be legally in default of the contract if you back out after you remove those contingencies. This also says that buyers may write offers on more than one property, and it's not illegal to make offers on multiple properties. But they need to tell you, the buyer needs to tell the seller if they're writing offers on multiple properties. You can't just throw out a bunch of offers, see which one sticks, especially if you're writing those offers non-contingent, because if two sellers say, okay, you're now in contract with two sellers with no contingencies, you're going to have to back out of one, and there's going to be consequences. Okay, seller considerations. Look at that whole document was based off of buyers. Now we come to the seller, and it's just saying, as the seller, you're responsible for determining the asking price of your home, and it is solely your decision of how much to ask and at which price you will sell your property. Most of these disclosures are for the buyers. Most of the disclosures are the seller saying, here's what I know, but Mr. Buyer, it's up to you to do that due diligence and remove your contingencies and not back out after you remove those contingencies. Okay, this next document is the be-all cover your rear end document. This is the county advisory. What this is if the seller forgot to tell the buyer to check something out, this 17-page document reminds the buyers of 17 pages of things that the buyer should be looking into. And the seller's saying, hey, please, I'm telling you everything I know, but I'm going to give you 17 pages of things that you might want to think about. So let's go through. I'm not going to go through these 17 pages. I'm only going to go through maybe 2 pages. What it's saying here is that the seller must disclose everything that they know, that we already know that. They're going to err on the side of providing as much information as possible. It's up to the buyers to do and conduct their own investigations. Okay. It says the broker hasn't verified anything. Okay. The broker doesn't have expertise in some issues and they can't really advise on everything. And here are all of the topics that the buyer should be looking into. And here's the page number that can be found on. This is alphabetical. And this is going to go, and it's just on and on and on about things that the buyer should be looking into. And the seller can say to the buyer, don't come to me saying I didn't tell you so, because I gave you 17 pages of everything you should be looking into. Okay, I skipped ahead to the final page, county and municipal websites. If the buyer needs to get a hold of any town or county to find out more information about what the seller told the buyer to check out, they can go to those websites. Electronic signatures talks about the fact that if you choose to use to sign these electronically, please take your time and read them. This is just indemnifying the brokers. Brokers just saying they don't have knowledge or guarantee about the condition of the property. They haven't inspected anything. They haven't verified anything. They are not guaranteeing anything, and they can't give tax advice. So there's your 17 pages of cover your rear end, seller and Mr. Buyer. Make sure you check everything out before you remove your contingencies. Everybody's going to date and sign. And we're getting on down here. We're doing real good. We're down to the lead-based paint and lead-based paint hazards disclosure. What this is saying is that the property, if it was built before 1978, the property may have an exposure to lead or may have. And what this is saying is the seller has no knowledge of lead-based paint other than the following. So If you don't have anything, if you don't know anything about the lead-based paint, then you don't put anything in here. Then it says, I, the seller, have no reports or inspections pertaining to lead-based paint. Unless you do, then you would put them there. Okay, and it also says that the buyer will be provided with a pamphlet, Protect Your Family from Lead, and also the Homeowner's Guide to Environmental Hazards and Earthquake Safety. So this pamphlet will be given to the buyers and to the sellers. The sellers will sign here, buyers will initial. It's a chronological document. The listing agent will sign, then the buyer will sign, then the buyer's agent will sign. We're done with the lead-based paint disclosure. Next comes water heater and smoke detector. All this is saying that California law requires water heaters to be braced and strapped, double strapped. And the seller represents that the property at the close of escrow will be in compliance with this. Seller signs, buyer signed. Also, smoke detectors in every sleeping area that the California law says operable smoke detectors, preferably those 10-year smoke detectors, but if you already have smoke detectors in every bedroom, you're all set. It says that the seller will have those things done by the close of escrow. Seller signs, buyer signs. Okay, now we come to the water conserving plumbing fixtures and carbon monoxide detector notice. The water conserving plumbing fixtures, kind of confusing to people sometimes, but if the home was built before 1994, it needs to be equipped with water conserving plumbing fixtures. That's as of 2017. Well, not a lot of homes built before 1994, unless they were remodeled, have water conserving plumbing fixtures. Now it says right here, installation of water conserving plumbing fixtures is not a point of sale requirement. Okay, it just says that it requires the seller to disclose to the buyer these requirements, and we are with this document, okay, and to tell the buyer whether the property contains any non-compliant water fixtures. So just say in the documents, like we already talked about in the TDS and the SPQ, my plumbing fixtures are not water conserving plumbing fixtures. You're covered, okay? The buyers are probably thinking they're going to do some remodeling anyway. All right, now we come down to carbon monoxide detectors. California law says that all existing dwellings have a carbon monoxide detector installed. That's one on every floor. Don't install the carbon monoxide detector right next to the heater, okay? Install it somewhere else. That's what you want to know is this permeating throughout the house? So it's up to the seller to have these smoke detectors installed, purchase them and install them, or we can have a handyman do it, and the carbon monoxide detector and the double strapped water heater. That's what you really need in order to sell a home. Those three things and full disclosure. Okay, that's that document. Then the seller will sign, the buyer will sign. Here's the document that says that the booklets were given to the buyer and the seller. You know, those exciting books about earthquakes and lead and toxic mold and all of those things. So it's going to say that the buyers sign, the buyer's agent signs, and also that the seller received a copy of that document, of that brochure or pamphlet, and then the sellers will sign and the listing agent will sign. Okay, we're getting down to the wire. Seller's affidavit of non-foreign status. This is saying that the seller is a U.S. citizen in a nutshell. Okay, so this is very interesting rule, and the buyer should be pretty much aware of this. It says that the buyer of U.S. property must withhold tax if the seller is a foreign person. The buyer. It's kind of crazy. And what happens, the story behind that, is the fact that if a seller, and they're selling, let's say, a property, and they're going to have to pay capital gains taxes, but they're not a U.S. citizen, and they sell the property and then leave the country, who's going to pay those capital gains taxes and those back property taxes and things like that? The buyer. So buyers, be very careful that you know if this is a foreign person you're buying from. As a seller, all you're going to do is you're going to put your name here, transfers name, and then you're just going to check this box that says, I am not a non-resident alien for purposes of U.S. income taxation. That's a double negative. You're not a non-resident alien. You're going to click that box. Then you're going to go down and it's going to say, hey, what's your social security number? No. That's why I've made this red. You don't need to put your social security number down on a document that's going to be handed out to all of the buyers as a disclosure. All you're going to say is that you're not a non-resident alien, okay? So don't fill out your social security number there. Then you're going to sign. You're going to say type your name, unless it's already typed for you. I may have done that for you. And then these are just some guidelines here that talks about foreign people, people with green cards, aliens, and things like that. But if you're a U.S. citizen, nothing you need to worry about there. Seller initials there. And you'll see that there are two of these. Each seller has to fill out their own FERPTA. Okay, so the first one was maybe for seller number one. The second one is for seller number two. Okay, that does it for the California Association of Realtors disclosures for sellers. But now there's a few more disclosures that are Keller Williams Bay Area Estates disclosures. These are just things that are synonymous to Keller Williams. So there's 4 documents here we're going to need to sign. The first one is the advisory regarding completing documents electronically. So it's pretty simplistic. It's please read each document before you sign it electronically. Take your time. It's saying that there may be more than one seller. That's okay. Really, it's just saying just be careful when you're signing electronic documents. So the seller's going to sign and date. The next document from Keller Williams is the selection of vendors. So there are going to be, the painter, the handyman, the house cleaner, the floor people, maybe the stager or the downsizer, but there's going to be selection of vendors, people that are going to help the seller out. And upon request by the seller, the agent will provide the seller with a list of people that we work with. But the selection, the retention, the supervision of those professionals are going to be done by the seller. Now, I can help you there. I can help you orchestrate it. You're going to have to give me, permission to do that on your behalf, but I can't guarantee the quality of those people. I can't guarantee they're going to be there on time. Things like that. So you're hiring them, you're paying them, and you're supposed to supervise them. So then the seller will sign, I will sign. Down another disclosure here from Keller Williams, it's an affiliated business. It's a disclosure saying that Keller Williams has a relationship with this Greystone Insurance Agency. We're not even going to use Greystone Insurance Agency, but you need to know as a seller that Keller Williams has this relationship with this insurance company. It really doesn't apply, but there's the disclosure. Keller Williams putting their cards on the table saying they have a relationship with an insurance company. I have no idea what their relationship is, but they're disclosing it to you. Okay, Keller Williams Bay Area Estates advisory. Okay, and it's saying that the broker makes no representation that any or all of the additions or modifications to the property have been done with permits. There's no way that a broker could know if you did anything with permits. Sometimes you don't even know if they were done with permits. So the buyer is advised and understands that there may have been things that were done without permits. And maybe those improvements, or maybe they were done without permits, in the future there might be a repercussion there. So be careful to the buyers and sellers. If you do have the permits, great, but the broker's not going to pull permits, and I'm not qualified to explain permits, and it's totally up to the buyer to acquire these permits. And the buyer acknowledges that some permit file or documentation could be incomplete, and the buyer doesn't analyze permits. Also says that the local school, the buyer is aware that the property may not, the kids that live in that property may not be permitted to attend the nearest local school, that the buyers need to check that out. The buyers need to be aware that some views of the property may be affected if somebody puts a 2-story house up next to theirs, or they grow a big tree in their backyard. So mainly buyers, do your due diligence. Seller has no control over what happens in the future. Um, Also says that the buyer has made necessary inspections about the square footage of the property. The buyer's not relying on what the seller says or what the broker says. The broker hasn't verified the lot size or the square footage of the property. It's all up to the buyer to check all that stuff out. Seller's going to sign and date, and you did it. You finished your seller's disclosures. Good job. That's not the only document you're going to sign. You're going to sign a lot more documents as we go through this. So really appreciate you spending the time here with me, listening what you need to do. Hopefully I address the seller side and the buyer side. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or requests, make sure you get a hold of me if I'm your listing agent, or me as if I'm your buyer's agent. If you're a buyer looking at this and you have another agent, share the video with that agent. And ask your agent some questions. So that's pretty much it. Thanks so much for participating, being a proactive homeowner to make sure you sell your home as is, and being a proactive buyer to make sure that you're comfortable removing your contingencies before you close that deal. All right, take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.